Everybody knows, the great battle of, at least in the press, of Web 2.0 featured Rupert Murdoch's MySpace, which My Dear magazine did a cover about, and an upstart Harvard kid starting something called Facebook, and the bets were on, and didn't do so well for the original MySpace. I think MySpace claims is older, right? When did MySpace start?
Good question. I think MySpace is probably slightly older.
Slightly older.
But Facebook was very college-oriented initially, so it wasn't as well known.
Now, and Owen is an incredibly perfect person to talk about this because aside from having worked for Jeff Bezos at Amazon.com, he came through Facebook and ended up at MySpace with a little side venture into the music business, which you'll also find out is very apropos to this. So Owen really has, if there's a grizzled veteran of the social networking wars, Owen is it. And so with no further ado, I just think we just dive right in. And, what happened? MySpace seemed like the 300-pound gorilla, and now it's not.
Well, so I've been at MySpace now about 9 months. When I came to the company, I think all great internet companies, consumer internet companies, focus on their product, on their people, their talent, and on their technical platform. And when I came to the company, what I found was the company was not taking enough of a user-centered approach to how it was thinking about product. It wasn't leveraging all of the...
Dial it back a little. How did you... you wouldn't be there if they hadn't done some things... when you say user-centric, what would you mean? It seemed like very user. Famously, MySpace was the place where you could go crazy with your homepage instead of being constricted into the little boxes like on Facebook. So what's not user-centric about that?
Well, the company wasn't looking at exactly what users were doing, where it is that they were engaged, and using that as a way to continue to drive innovation. The product started to not be focused enough and not deliver excellence in all of the areas that it was operating. So examples of what we did initially to start to reverse that were we started sunsetting different areas of the site.
For instance, what's it?
Weather, jobs, classifieds. These were just functions that MySpace was not doing a great job providing a really core user value proposition.
So it got too broad.
It was just not focused enough. And I think great internet companies focus a lot on exactly what their user value proposition is. MySpace has an incredibly strong user value proposition. It's all about discovery, sharing, and showcasing content. That is organically what has emerged on that platform as what has the most engagement with users and what we see users engaging with the most going forward.
As a kind of fireman CEO, which is sort of what you are, you came into this situation. Do you do market research? How do you quickly get the lay of the land and decide? And then do you make like a checklist, assets, liabilities? How does it work?
Well, the great thing about a site like MySpace is you have literally over 100 million users every month spending more time on MySpace than almost every other site on the web, telling you exactly what it is that they want and where it is that they're finding value.
Did you go back and start reading through the user comments? And
you start looking at the data and seeing exactly what users are engaged with and what it is they aren't engaged with. And users will, we all value time more than just about anything. Users will vote with their time for the things that they find most valuable. By going back and simply looking at that and then becoming a lot more data-driven in our decision-making, we very quickly were able to determine that, our roadmap was probably an order of magnitude, it probably had an order of magnitude more projects on it than we should have, and we focused it down literally by 10x to start delivering on the areas that we knew users really wanted, that really mapped to that user value proposition of discovery, sharing, and showcasing. And the users really kind of paved the road for us. They showed us where it is.
Did you go and look for people who bailed from the service completely, and let's go find out why?
Well, we've got 130 million people engaged on the site every single month. You have such a massive audience engaged. You can really look at real time what it is that users are telling you by voting with their time. And let's face it, the social web, which is the space that we operate in, And again, I think the social web is a space. In order to be a leader, you have to have a social graph, which we do, right? The digital representation.
Explain social graph, because it gets used a lot.
It's really a digital representation of the connections that exist between people.
Can you plot it? Can you see it on the? Could you put it up on a screen?
It's not dissimilar from the web map. Yes, you effectively can. It evolves extremely rapidly, just like after today, our relationship has gotten stronger. The difference with the MySpace social graph is that MySpace is a place where people expect to connect with people that they have no connection to in the real world. And so going back to our core value...
Is that a difference with Facebook?
Well, I think it's a difference from just about everybody out there today, especially at our scale. Certainly at our scale, nobody has that.
Let's just unpack. In other words, you're saying people will be playing a game with somebody that they don't know, or will be...
Correct.
On a movie site with...
Much like the real world, right? In the real world, most of our music tastes, our film and TV, our games, all of that is influenced massively by people. And MySpace has the type of environment and value proposition and brand where users expect to be able to connect through content with other people.
Other people they don't know already.
That they either do know or that they don't know. But that's one of the unique...
So it's a more public space than, say, Facebook is.
I think it's a different space than everybody else.
Now, entertainment. I think it's not an accident that MySpace was bought by an entertainment company, and has had entertainment from day one as lurking in the background. And in fact, MySpace Music, we might as well just segue right into that, is actually by itself. You effectively have two companies with entirely different business structures, am I right? MySpace Music is a joint venture of a number of companies with its own board and its own everything, but it's integrated in the site.
The MySpace Music JV is set up so that we can really have the assets necessary to innovate in music, and we think that that's an area that is going through massive innovation right now. It's very exciting to see what's happening with users. If you look at MySpace Music, in terms of usage over the last year, we've had 92% growth in unique users, 30% growth in the last 30 days on MySpace Music. So this is an area that's absolutely exploding right now. Our JV structure is designed for us to be able to have partnerships with large record labels, record publishers, independent record labels and publishers, artists, which was a very organic thing that grew on MySpace. And it is a business structure that enables us to have a different set of relationships and, frankly, licenses, which is what you need to have to be able to operate in that arena, in a way that we can truly innovate and partner with them to create that next generation, that next innovative experience that users are asking for.
Now, all kinds of strange bedfellows are being created here. For instance, you guys are now integrated with Twitter, if I remember right. There are rumors that Facebook Connect may be in MySpace's future, which I don't know the ability to move around among social networks seems to be increasing. I think your MySpace, Google Music's deal, well, maybe you should explain it. How that came about.
Well, one of the very first things that we did when we started looking at data and started thinking about how we wanted to position MySpace for this next wave of opportunity is it became very clear that users are at a place where they want to be able to experience their content. They want to be able to have these social experiences where they want them. And we really think that the future of content distribution is, like in the real world on the web, going to be through people, not necessarily through portals or destinations. And so openness and being able to integrate in ways that people could get that content, distribute that content, and also collect that content, all very consistent with the value proposition of discovery, of sharing and showcasing. To answer your question specifically about what we've done, we've integrated with Twitter. You can literally sync your account with your Twitter account, and as you do status updates on MySpace, it will automatically tweet those out. Your tweets on Twitter will automatically post to MySpace, and all of that content then goes into the engine that fuels all that discovery and sharing at MySpace.
Are we driving toward a world where it won't matter what social network you happen to call home, in the same way that it doesn't matter what country you happen to call home, as long as you have a passport, you can go out and travel around? Are we headed that way?
I believe that we're headed to a place where the web, and especially as it relates to content and communications, is becoming increasingly social every day. And if you just look at time spent, I think it's 40–50% of people's time on the internet is now spent in these social environments, which means you need to be able to infuse both the experience you have with content with the ability to have other people in that experience.
Let me go right to the rumor about Facebook Connect. Could you envision that happening, that anybody could then travel back and forth, in effect, between the two?
Well, I think as people want to experience content in a lot of different places, we know there's a lot of people on Facebook. That certainly is something that would be consistent with our strategy around openness. One of the things that we did early in my tenure was we acquired a company called iLike. iLike has the largest music footprint in the application space across all social networks, including Facebook. And that's one example of where we are making content available for people where it is that they want it. You can start to move that content into your iLike experience, and we can take all of the interaction and engagement we have in iLike, and we can start to fuel discovery and sharing and showcasing on Myspace as well.
So are we seeing something that replicates the old walled gardens that we used to have, CompuServe and AOL and all the ones that people as old as me remember, and they all kind of fell apart because there was this...
I remember those too.
the openness imperative that a lot of people really believe always wins, and that when you in their current, as originally conceived, something like Facebook was a walled garden. I mean, there was no in, no out.
I think openness is critical. I think we can see it everywhere in the internet. Look at music, right? The digital disruption that occurred within music had to do with the fact that a lot of the defensive moats from a business standpoint were built around controlling distribution of that content. The internet obliterates that. It is the great equalizer, as they've said many, many years ago. And clearly you need to be pushing towards being more open always if you want to keep up with the evolution of what's happening on the internet.
Music is an amazing space where there was a big wave of people that came in, including you guys. There's been a bunch of casualties, and now there's yet another wave of Nicholas Zenstrom, who was just here last night, has got a new startup, Vivo, Spotify. There's a whole new... are you worried the space is too crowded?
No, I think that there's such massive opportunity for innovation, and this is not a winner-take-all space, that all of that innovation should have a rising tide for users, which is what we're focused on. And let's face it, music is one of those touchstones. It crosses every demographic, every psychographic. We all listen to music. It's very important to a lot of our lives. You hear that song and it triggers that memory. Right. We see it all over the place. One of the great integrated marketing initiatives that has happened on Myspace recently is, if you look at what's happening with film, New Moon and Twilight, which has been incredibly popular, have driven a huge amount of engagement with their brand on Myspace, and then you can also see that their soundtrack has become #1 in a number of countries as well. And so you can see this intersection between music and media and content happening everywhere, which means there's going to be a lot of people that are going to continue to push on that, and we think it's going to be great for users, and we're excited about our position and the future for us in music.
Your old colleague Mark Zuckerberg has been arguing that there's a new social norm, he calls it, evolving around privacy, and that people are not, his users or Facebook's users, are not as sensitive about putting personal things online as previous generations of people might have been. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think it's hard to make generalizations for the entire population of the internet like that, and I don't know that's exactly what was intended there. Look, I think that privacy and the way that people think about control of information is going to differ, certainly by generation, and let's face it, we all get more comfortable with more information being out there, and then also based on what the distinct user value proposition is for the place that you are making the decision about privacy and about how it is you want to control your information. And what we're focused on is we want to give people lots of control and lots of choice. Myspace has always been a place where we've given people a much broader creative ability. We've given them a much bigger canvas to work on. You can really do whatever you want to on MySpace, and it's a big reason why every band on the planet pretty much has a MySpace page, because they can come and they can express themselves artistically in a way that they can't other places. And so I think brand by brand, experience by experience, area by area, that decision is going to be different for different people. I think it's difficult to make a broad sweeping generalization like that.
A couple of years ago, the conventional wisdom was that social networks were poor platforms for big brand marketing because they were too many people were doing what they wanted to do, unsuitable, blah, blah. Is that changing?
I don't think that brands' desire to be associated with environments that are consistent with their brand is ever going to change. I do think that if you look at the evolution of MySpace, a lot of where it has evolved is it started with a lot of user-generated content, and now you see it as a platform where a lot of professionally produced content and high-quality curated content is starting to be distributed across the platform. That combined with what we've been pushing on, which is to try to be more innovative for brands in the web space in general, I think is causing a lot of brands to do really interesting things. One of the cool things that we've seen from a brand perspective is we've got this franchise called Secret Shows, where we literally invite our users to come and have a free secret show, and we throw a concert for them. You show up with your profile.
This is real world.
The first 1,000 people come in. This is something that happens in locations across the world. We did 50 of these secret shows in the last 12 months. One of the great branding opportunities that we were able to develop with Citi was they can be online, they can be integrated into the socialization that occurs in the build-up to that event. They can then have a physical presence at the actual event itself, which gives them the ability to exercise themselves, their creative desires and their brand objections in a totally different way, and then go back to the online piece and be part of the whole social activity that happens afterwards, where people are talking about the shows, people are sharing photos, commenting on the set list, talking about, frankly, how cool they were. And Citi gets an opportunity to reach users both online and offline in highly integrated, very interesting ways associated with great brands like bands. And I think those are the types of integrated marketing opportunities that we're going to see increasingly happen across all of the web.
We're going to have about 10 minutes to go, so if there are questions out here, let's do them. And Rafat's got one right here.
Hey.
How do you plan to bring back the users, or at least aiming at the users who've abandoned MySpace and moved on? What's the value proposition for them to come back?
Let me see if I can't hear entirely, but it's basically how are brands...
How have users who've abandoned MySpace and moved on, how do you bring them back? What's the value proposition?
Got it. So, the great thing about MySpace is that it is incredibly viral and it's highly social. And the way things that get promoted and the way that users originally came to the site and the way that they increasingly come back is all through the other users of the site. The way that we are trying to make it a great place for everyone is, again, focusing on this value proposition of discover, share, and showcase content, which means making our site the best place to do that, bringing in great content. We look in the video space, for example, we have over 400 partners in the video space who are looking to distribute content through our graph and through our platform on MySpace. And what we have seen since we've started making some of the product improvements around usability and just simply making the site a lot better, decreasing page download times, is that virality is starting to increase and we're starting to see people come back. And if you look just even at ComScore, last 30 days we had a 7% increase in unique users to the site. You can see virally how this starts to happen very, very rapidly. So that's really
could you conceivably morph to the point where the social networking side of MySpace is the tail rather than the dog?
Well, I think social networking is a tough term because I think it means a lot of things to a lot of people. I think there's a core communications component to any social environment that is increasingly important. But we think that everything around the spaces that we're focused on, which are primarily content spaces, are going to inherently be social on the web. Having a good set of core social networking tools and having that platform be there is going to increasingly be important. So what are some of those things? Your profile. People want to showcase content, which means they want to put it on their profile. It's the reason we wear concert shirts. It's the reason we tell our friends about bands that we think are cool. People want to be able to share. So the ability to actually post content either to your profile or other people's streams of information, or simply to be able to share it with them on Twitter or on the iLike application on Facebook. All of those things are what we think about as social networking elements that we have to continue to be fundamentally very good at. Our usability there has to be good.
But in theory, if you have a smoking hot entertainment site that everybody is dying to go to, the social stuff can become secondary to that, couldn't it?
Well, I think that goes against the grain of one of our key beliefs, which is the future of content distribution is not going to be these destinations and portals. It's going to be through people, much like what happens in the real world.
But then you're going to launch that. I mean, that's.
I think we're going to empower that. I think we're going to empower content distribution. I think we are empowering content distribution. Discovery, sharing, showcasing with our platform, with our partners, with the entire MySpace experience. And I think we have a lot of opportunity to improve, and we're really focused on that, but that is the core user value proposition that exists there today. That's where we see engagement accelerating, and that's where we see the users telling us we should be going.
Hi, so just to pick up on that, do you have any aspirations for video content consumption, live streaming events, that kind of thing, that you would see yourselves making a major push into? And the second question on international, where are you most widely distributed internationally, and in particular, what are your plans for China and what's your view about China?
Sure. So question in 3 parts. As for live events, it's something that we've been pioneering for a long time on MySpace. MySpace is a great place where we can bring together a massive audience and put.
What's massive in terms?
I mean, millions of people, right? So you think about what is the Super Bowl in terms of distribution. We can basically create that type of an opportunity at MySpace every single day. So we've been doing live events like we were at the AMAs on the red carpet, interviewing celebrities as they were coming down the red carpet. Those types of events are increasingly becoming things that people want to experience on the internet, and will absolutely be there. Forgot the second question. I know the third one was China.
International.
Oh, international. International is extremely important to us and always has been. We've really focused our physical presence internationally in the UK, in Germany, and in Australia. We have a global platform, so we have one platform that operates all of these markets. And we recently launched music in the UK, which has been hugely successful. We launched music in Australia and New Zealand and immediately became the #1 music site in those markets. So international continues to be a very big focus for us. But in terms of where internationally, as long as we can simply provide this core value proposition, we think that it is a global thing. We think that all of those markets are going to want it. Your China question, we have a company in China. It's Myspace China. It is a company that we have a number of outside investors for. We have partnerships and a local presence there, and that's the company that's focused on China right now. We think it's a big opportunity.
Okay. Anybody else? Twitter is interesting. Do you think Twitter is a feature or a standalone company?
Well, I think Twitter is a great representation of what we're talking about in terms of openness. I think it is kind of one of the ultimate open companies where you can choose to have your Twitter experience a lot of different ways with really any kind of front end that you want on it. We are one of the very large Twitter interfaces, and so I think that is a lot of what embodies this notion of openness, and I think it is I think that is a lot of more of what we're going to see on the web going forward.
If it were up for sale, would you buy it?
Me personally, I don't think I could afford it.
Rupert could.
Look, we're in the process right now of building. We've just rebuilt our team. I have an entirely new management team.
Right.
We are rebuilding our technical platform. That's really where a lot of our focus is. We'll continue to be opportunistic on the M&A front, but we're focused on building right now.
Is there a lesson, I mean, you already said, focus on the customer. Are there any other lessons from the experience of MySpace in the last 2 or 3 years? Another one that comes to mind, obviously, things can happen very fast, can't they? I mean, for everybody in this room, whatever they're doing, what would you say is the historical lessons here?
Well, what I've learned on the internet is, I think number one, you can't move fast enough, and however fast you're moving is never fast enough, and you always need to be moving faster. It's just everything's expanding so rapidly, like a cloud everywhere, that you have to be moving very quickly. I think the other part of that is you have to be willing to innovate, and that means taking risks and looking to rebuild things before they may seem to need to be rebuilt, so that you're constantly meeting the increasing demands of users.
So what about the users who squawk every time you rebuild their favorite toy?
I think as long as you continually innovate and stay focused on your core user value proposition, users will ultimately reward you with their time, with their wallets in a lot of cases. Staying focused on that and delivering on a single core value proposition is the way that you overcome alienating users.
You got to renegotiate a search deal soon. Right now you have a Google deal that's going to be expiring. What do you see? I mean, is that getting more interesting now that Microsoft is putting so much effort behind Bing?
Well, we've done a lot at MySpace to build different revenue streams than what was originally generated through the Google partnership. We really do view that as a partnership. You mentioned the Google search integration that we recently did. You can now do music searches at Google and get directly to MySpace through the One-Box implementation. So that's a partnership that continues to evolve. We will always be a diversified set of revenue streams at MySpace, and we're not overly dependent on any one of them. And that's important for a business of our size and our scale. So, we're looking at a lot of different things in terms of new revenue opportunities. Search is one of those areas, but I would imagine that continues to evolve, and there doesn't need to be some, atomic new deal in order for us to continue to have the success that we've had.
Okay, we're getting the high sign here. Thank you, Owen.
Thank you.